Hi there, Ram owners. Today in your 2016 Ram, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Timbren Suspension Enhancement System. Before we begin our installation, we're going to take some baseline measurements so we can see the difference of how our truck's going to perform when it's loaded without any suspension enhancements and with it loaded with our new Timbren Suspension Enhancement. So currently we've got it unloaded so we can get a baseline of what it's like completely stock. And we're at about 39.5 inches right now. And here in the front, we're sitting at right at about 38 3/4. We're now going to take about 1,000 pounds of water and we're going to place it in the back of the truck and recheck our measurements to see what it's like loaded up. So you can already tell here that we are sagging quite a bit. From the 39.5 we were at before, we're down 4.5 inches to 35 here in the back. And in the front, we've lifted up about a full inch from 38 3/4 to about 39.5. Hauling a heavy load with your suspension loaded up like we are now is going to drastically decrease your braking and handling performance. Having the back end dip down is going to change how the weight distributes to your front wheels for braking. It's also going to change the surface area of your tires and their contact to the road because the geometry of your suspension is going to be different than what it would be if you're at normal ride height. Additionally, your visibility at night is going to be decreased because our headlights are now pointing up towards the sky rather than down at the road. By lifting up the back and returning our ride height to normal, we can restore a lot of that lost performance. Once we put Timbrens in, I drastically expect that we're going to be significantly higher in the back than what we are without any suspension enhancements. We've now got it all loaded up. We took our baseline measurements, but now we're going to see how it actually performs with all this weight in it. So we're going to hit our test course. We're going to start with the uneven bump section first. And this is going to be our rocking back and forth side to side. And I'll tell you, surprisingly, right now the truck feels fairly smooth riding over these bumps. You can definitely feel that the weight in the back is tipping us down. I mean, I can see the hood is lifted up and everything, but it is surprisingly smooth. So we're going over the bumps fairly decently here. And we're headed into the even bump section now. And this is where we're going to mimic like going into a parking lot with a speed bump. Previously, the uneven was more for like potholes. And here we can feel the forward and back movement. But again, surprisingly, the suspension is very smooth. But where I expect to see some major issues here is when we head into the slalom, where we're going to mimic evasive maneuvers. And that's where we're heading next. And with all this weight back in there with our suspension loaded out, I imagine we're not going to be handling these turns the way that we hope that our vehicle would. So we're getting ready to head into the slalom section now and see how she feels. Oh yeah, you can definitely feel the weight throwing it around. The suspension is surprisingly smooth. It feels good in the truck, but it definitely does not feel like you would want to perform any evasive maneuvers with this weight in there. I'm going to swing it back around and we're going to do it again here a little bit, but I'm not going to go too crazy with it because you can really feel the back end want to kind of pull the truck due to all that weight. With our Timbrens installed, we've placed the weight back in the back of our truck and we're going to recheck our measurements. Now in the back, we're only dropping down about 1 3/4 to just over 37.5 inches. So that's a significant improvement over our stock ride that was like 4.5 inches down. So it's already going to ride a whole lot better and we're going to restore a lot of that performance that we were losing before. So here in the front, we're up about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So that's significantly less of a rise in the front that we had from not having anything, which is going to bring our headlights back down and help greatly improve our visibility at night. So now that we've got our Timbrens in and we're loaded up, we're going to go ahead and hit the test course again. And I can already tell you right off the bat, you can notice a huge difference just sitting in the truck. I don't feel like I'm slouched back like I was before, kind of looking down the hood. It feels like we're in a level truck again. We're going to hit those uneven bumps first. Oh yeah, and It's actually a little bit stiffer than it was before, so the suspension's not quite as smooth as the factory suspension, but it's by no means excessively stiff to where we're getting thrown around and it's going to be uncomfortable. It's a very good riding truck. I have to give that to Ram here. They've done a great job. But you can definitely feel that with the Timbrens in there, that it's supporting the weight. We're not slamming the back down like we were going over those bumps. So while it's a little bit rougher, it definitely still feels like there's a lot more support for our weight back there. We're going to hit the slalom section, and that's where I'm expecting to see some big improvements. Before the back, the weight really felt like it was kind of throwing our truck around, and I was pretty uncomfortable whipping it the way I was. We're going to go at it again, and we're going to see if we can take even more aggressive maneuvers with it. And here we come into the section. Oh wow, yeah, that made a huge difference. The body roll is significantly less with the Timbrens in there, and the weight just feels more stable in the back. I was actually a little scared before because the weight started to kind of slide around in the back, and that's a lot of weight. So after getting back from the test course, on the bump section we kind of talked about how it was a little bit stiffer. The truck still rode great, but on our slalom section is where I really noticed the biggest difference. Before, it almost felt like it wanted to fishtail because we were throwing the weight on the back of our truck around. Because we were all the way down on the factory jounce bumpers, it was just slammed all the way down. With the Timbrens in here now, our suspension actually gets to travel, and I could feel it working with the weight, supporting it, so we weren't feeling like we were just kind of throwing a heavy weight on the end of a rope. It felt very in control in comparison. And even though it was a little stiffer, it definitely doesn't ruin the ride quality. And that's with it loaded up. What I like about the Timbrens is that when we're completely unloaded, it rides just like your factory truck because the jounce bumpers aren't touching the axle. So here we can see our new jounce bumper from Timbren versus our factory jounce bumpers. The rubber material on this one is going to be significantly harder. You can see this one, I can squish it pretty easily. So there's a lot more support being provided by this one. And you can see that it's significantly taller as well. Both of these will sit into your jounce bumper cups on your truck, and below you'll have your axle. On your factory jounce bumper, we've got a larger space between our jounce bumper and our axle. You can see the distance there is significant. And this bumper doesn't really do anything until your suspension's almost fully loaded up until it contacts the bumper to prevent it from bottoming out. With our longer Timbren spring here, this one is going to contact the bumper much sooner, and as you load your suspension down, you're going to get more and more pressure on this, which is going to help support the load. So as you can see, Timbrens are going to be a great option for your Ram. It definitely feels like it unlocks the towing capabilities of it, but there are a couple other options, airbags being one of the biggest ones that you'll consider. Airbags work similarly to Timbrens as they do go between your axle and your frame to provide support. The big difference between airbags and Timbrens is that Timbrens are going to be set into their one position and they're going to be completely maintenance free. With airbags, they are adjustable, so you can adjust it for the weight that you've got here in the back. So we were still a little bit down here in the back and a little bit up in the front with adding all this weight, but not even close to where it was without our Timbrens. With airbags, we could bring up the back and get it completely level again, but you're going to notice this drastic difference in ride quality. When you load up airbags, they do tend to be stiffer than what our Timbrens are going to be. And you also have to keep maintaining that air pressure and adjusting it constantly. With the Timbrens, we don't have to think about it. We just load it up and go. We'll begin our installation by lifting up on the back of the vehicle so that way our suspension hangs down to give us more room to work. You'll want to place a chock on both sides of one of your front tires to ensure that the vehicle can't move when you're jacking it up. We're going to use a pole jack here on our hitch since we're on a lift, but you could easily just use your floor jack at home on your hitch to do so. And we're just trying to, again, just increase the room between our axle and the frame so it's easier to get our components in and out. Now that we've got some more space to work, we're going to be removing our factory jounce bumpers, and that's these here. We're going to just pry them out of there, pull them out of there, however it's easiest for you. Sometimes using some spray lubricant can help slip it out a little bit easier. So we're just going to use a little silicone spray up on each side. And then we can kind of just twist it to work that silicone in there, and then it'll just pull right out. We're going to do the same thing over on the other side. We can now take our new spring. We're going to use some silicone spray around the top. It's not going to hurt to put a little bit in the cup too, because the more lubrication you've got, the easier it's going to be to put the Timbren into place. And this is just like the other one, it's just going to push into place. So we're just going to push it up in there until we get it in. And then we're going to go do the same thing over on the other side. We're now going to place some blocks of wood on our axle plate here where the old jounce bumper would contact. Because even though we got it pressed in there and it seems like it's all the way in, we want to make sure that it's all the way in. We don't want our Timbrens coming out. So by putting these here, we can lower our suspension back down and use the weight of the truck to ensure that it's fully loaded. Now that we've got all the weight of our truck resting on the jounce bumpers and the blocks of woods we've put on there, we can go ahead and lift it back up and take our pieces of wood out. And we'll just slide these pieces of wood out, and then we can lower the vehicle all the way back down. And now that we're all the way back down on the ground, we're ready to load up our truck. And that completes our installation of Timbren's suspension enhancement system on our 2016 Ram.